Hi, I'm Midge Shoemaker, and today is day 36 of my doing 100 days of YouTube videos and focusing on my writing. Yay for my writing. Um, my brain still wants to say gratitude. I did that for 100 days, so I keep thinking that. Anyway, day 36, I did finish doing some revisions to Lanoya and the Teachers of Powers. Yay, I'm so excited to be finished. Um, it was kind of one of those things where I got to the end and I was like, that's it. I'm done. There's no more. It was just kind of like, I don't know, like I was waiting for something and I was just like, I don't know what I'm waiting for. I'm like, I'm done because there was nothing else to read and there was no other thoughts in my head of something to add or to write. And I was like, that was it. That was easy. I actually liked how my chapter ended, how it worked together, how it flowed. I did make some changes. I did go back to chapter 21 and took out that one character that didn't need to be there, and that worked out okay. Made a few minor changes with that. I did go back and decide to do even instead of even sky throughout the book. I think I like that better. But other than that, I mean, I made a few minor changes to the last chapter. And then I'm good. I'm like, yay, I did this. And then I talked to my friend that does some editing. I sent her a message on Facebook and she messaged me back. And she's willing to try to do like a content and line edit. I guess those are the two types of edits because she asked if I wanted both, one or the other or both. And I'm like, both would be good. So I know if my content is good or not. She'll let me know. But yay, I'm very excited about it. And then I went with my park friend. I'm calling her my park friend. I went to the park today. Anyway, so we went and just kind of sat and chatted and whatever. But it was fun. And then she was talking about my book, and she's been slowly reading and rereading. And I was like, okay, but I've rewritten the entire thing since the last time I saw you, so it's not quite the same book. So some of the details are different. Some of the things have changed. But she did point out that I did use the word hate a lot in my book, which I didn't realize that I did that. So I'm like, oh, I should not be using that same word or that so many times. So it's something I need to fix. But and she did ask about symbols, which I don't have an explanation for. I'm like, oh no, didn't do that either. And she asked a lot of other questions, which I kind of felt, I don't know, taken aback, deflated a little bit. I was a little, not disappointed. I was grateful for her comments. I was grateful for her questions. It's just that her ideas and thoughts and things about the story, I was like, started thinking, getting me thinking. And I was like, I don't know how that's going to work with any of my stories because I don't have specific bad guys in any of my stories that people have to overcome or that people have to fight. It's all of my stories are just, they're characters like myself, I guess, that are struggling with things in life, that have hard things happen to them that they have to figure out how to overcome, that they have to figure out how to be happy. And a lot of them are very insecure like me and don't know their value. And so as they're figuring out what their value is, and so kind of like with Lanoya and the Teachers of Power, she's an orphan and she sees herself as an orphan. She sees everybody else seeing her as an orphan and she just wants to be left alone. But then she realizes that she has these powers and she has the opportunity to do or be something better. So it takes her a while to accept that she can have something better. That's the gist of the book, basically. And the other thing is, I'm like, I explained to my friend, I'm like, I have this whole other series. And she's like, oh, wow. And I was like, well, that's why I wrote The Fall of Espanglandia, was to explain the future series. It is basically a prequel. It's a prequel series that sets up the stage for something else. And so then I wrote Lanoya and the Teachers of Powers to introduce the teachers and the powers of the land. I didn't write it with a specific bad guy in mind. Like, there isn't a specific bad guy to my story. It's just a story. It's just what happened to somebody's life. It's like reading someone's life story, which, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily boring. I don't find it to be a boring story. I think people in everyday life have lots of adventures and lots of things they do, but nobody knows their stories because we don't share their stories. And these are fictional stories in a fantasy world, fantasy powers, things that I've created, but they're still just people struggling with their everyday lives, trying to figure out who they are, where they fit in the world, what their choices and consequences are, how to make relationships work, and just different things like that I'm still trying to figure out, sort out, do lots of different adventures along the way. But there's not really a conflict, other than maybe an internal conflict. I mean, in some of my later stories, there are some external conflicts and wars and battles and things, but it's not, I don't know. I'm listening to my friend, and I'm like, she's right. Most stories have some kind of a bad guy, some kind of thing that they have to overcome, that they have to do. And I was like, they have to overcome themselves? They have to figure out how to bring peace to the whole kingdom, the whole world, the whatever? I don't know. But it's like a whole huge series. And then I realized that all of my stories and ideas, even my other series that I want to write, it's about a person and her life, and then her children and her children's lives, and their struggles, their everyday struggles in life. It's not about it's not about a bad guy or a bad person. It's just about things that happen and how they overcome them, and how they, use their faith or use their powers or use whatever to get through things. And so I don't know if that takes away. I mean, I can't see myself changing the story, like adding a bad guy. There isn't another plot twist of some kind for that, which my friend was looking for. She's like, I can't wait to figure out. I was like, there isn't one. And she was like, oh. I was like, sorry to disappoint you, but there isn't one in my story. So I guess it kind of leaves me feeling with a little bit of a conundrum. Like, I'm excited I finished my story. Maybe I could add some detail about the symbols or something. Just gonna wait and see what my friend says when she edits the book. But it is, I guess, if people are looking for a specific bad guy in my story, they're gonna be disappointed, because there isn't one. It's just an individual character's personal struggle to change, to see the world that she lives and thinks that she wants, like she's stuck in the past, and then realizing that what she's being offered in the present is better than what she's known, and eventually choosing to let go of what she had because what she's getting is better, and accepting that it's okay to have something better. And then, of course, I told my friend it just kind of ends, and she was like, you can't just end it like that. And I was like, I kind of just did. Like, because most stories, most movies, most things that I've watched, it's like once you get to the happy ending, you don't keep writing about the happy ending. You don't keep writing about what they're learning and what they're doing. It just kind of, it ends. That's where the story ends. And then it's up to people's imaginations. And of course, you will see the characters all again in the next book, in The Fall of Espinglandia, because Lenoya and the Teachers of Powers is written to explain the teachers and their powers and everything that comes into play in The Fall of Espinglandia. And I tried once before to try to rewrite The Fall of Espinglandia from Lenoya's point of view, because I did do Lenoya's point of view for this book, and I think it attaches people to that particular character, and they do want to know what's going on with her. I may try to go back and review that again to see if there's some way to make it from Lenoya's point of view. I just didn't use Lenoya's point of view very often in The Fall of Espinglandia. She wasn't one of the main characters in that book. And even though she's in the book and she's part of the story, it's not written from her point of view. And I like it from the other teachers' points of view. So I probably will not do it from her point of view. However, if I do get to the end, if I do choose to end it differently, and I do choose to write 2 other books, I can do Lenoya's point of view and someone else's point of view for another book, which would be interesting to see, because she will be making a difference. She will be having conversations with that person, so it would be okay to have both of their points of views. And hopefully I will learn in The Fall of Espinglandia how to write from multiple characters' points of views, because I'm trying to do it from 3 different character point of views. So if I can figure out how to do it from 3 character point of views and end it at the right spot, I can leave it open for the next 2 books, which means I will end up writing 2 brand new books. But I will be taking the end of The Fall of Espinglandia and splitting it into 2 different books. So it would be the beginning of each of those books, and then I will kind of explain what happens from there. Possibly. I I don't know. I mean, it was kind of fun talking to my friend, and she's like, the whole romance thing would be kind of interesting. And I was like, yeah, hadn't really thought about it. Not really into that at this stage in the story. Not really. It's not as relevant to me, I guess, because that wasn't what I was thinking when I wrote the book originally. It doesn't mean I can't create it. It doesn't mean it's not a possibility. It just means it's not what I thought of originally. But I'm learning that I can go back and change things. I can add things. I can do things differently. But I also am aware that it's still my story. It's still my book. It's still my version. And it is possible that because I don't have bad guys in my story, because it's just a character overcoming her own issues, realizing that she's being offered a better life instead of a worse life or whatever it is, struggle to let go of the past, to live in the present, to accept the future that's being offered to her. I still think it's a good story. I think there will be people out there that will like to read the story, but it does not going to have the bad guy in the story. But I feel like I've read lots of stories that aren't necessarily bad guys, that do like trilogies and other things where it's just, different characters that get pulled into different worlds or things like that or different things that happen as they're going about and discovering their powers and everywhere. But there's not necessarily a bad guy, but there's always a conflict, whether it's with other people or with themselves or something. And it's just, and sometimes it's just a misinterpretation because it's just from their point of view and not the other person's point of view. So I still feel like maybe it's still a good story. It's still a good book. It's just not not what my friend was expecting. So I felt a little bad because I'm like, I feel like I'm disappointing my friend just a little bit because that's not what she was expecting. But then I'm like, but she's so cute. And she's like, okay, I'm still curious. I want to read to the end of it. And I was like, okay, but I've tried to change it. I'm telling you, I changed it. And I've sent the revised version to our mutual friend that's doing the editing thing. So she's going to try to edit it for me. And I asked her if she could do it in the next 2 weeks. So I hope she can do it in the next 2 weeks. But I don't know if she's going to be able to do it in the next 2 weeks or not. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I want to try to get it done. I want to try to get it finished, but I also know that I can't rush it. I can't force it. I can't make it happen. I just have to be patient. So this is the hard part for me, where I have to let go of my book and I have to send it to someone else. And I just have to wait. The only other thing I can do is try to figure out a blurb for the back of the book and talk to my friend that's supposed to be doing the book covers and see if she's got her stuff so she can make my book covers for me. But that's the only thing I can do. The rest of it, I have to wait. It's on hold until I can see the changes that my friend wants to do as far as editing, whether I accept them or change them or do whatever differently. And then, kind of maybe a little back and forth to try to get it just right. Maybe add a little bit more detail to it. I don't know. But I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. I don't know. It's one of those conundrum things where I feel like I'm too much of a people pleaser and I want to make everybody happy. And then I have to remind myself I can't make everybody happy when I write my book. And my stories are different. They're uniquely mine. They're not like everyone else's stories. And I mean, other people do write stories, but I mean, I guess they have bad guys in them or they have characters that people don't like in them. And I know there's characters in my books that I don't particularly like that other people probably won't particularly like. So I could see it that way. Like in The Fall of Espinglandia, there's kind of like the good brother and the bad brother. And I don't, so it is more defined as far as that goes, but I didn't do any of those defining things in this book. So I hope that's not too disappointing to readers when they read it. It might be one of those things that people are more interested in reading or understand better as, they read the future series. Because usually I think what happens is I think authors create the backstory, they write the story, they publish the story, and then they go back and they write the backstory to explain the story because people want to go back and have that stuff. I think that happened with like Harry Potter. I think it happened with like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. I think that happens a lot where they do like the prequel that comes after the actual series, the sequels, trilogies. So you got this trilogy, you got the sequel, you got all that stuff, and then you go back and you do the prequel. The prequel comes last instead of first. So I'm doing it backwards. I'm writing the prequel first because that's the backstory to my story. And so I'm writing the prequel series first because I just don't want to deal with I started the series ones first. Not first, I started them second. I started the Wise One second, and I have not finished it. And then, of course, I was talking to my friend about it today. She's like, that's a little dark. And she's like, that's more like young adult. And I was like, I know it is. I wasn't planning on this series being I was thinking more like teenagers or young adults, which is the other conundrum that I have because I'm writing a series of books and I don't have a specific age group for them. But I don't think they're for youth. I'm not going to say that they're for youth. They're not for little kids. Yes, I have little kids in my stories. Yes, it's about what happens to a little girl that's like 11, but I don't really think that it's for 11-year-olds to be reading. Because, yeah, I tried reading some of it to my daughter, and she's like, that's dark. There's like dying in that book, and I was like, yeah, that's not really for kids to be reading, to be hearing about. Her friend was the same way, and it's like, yeah, that happens. People die in books and characters, but you get that more with like Shakespeare and other stuff like in high school. So I think teenagers, high school, young adults, that would be more the age range of people that would read my books, that would understand my books. And that's also the age when I think as teenagers that you're trying to find yourself and figure out who you are. So I think more teenagers and young adults in that age that's trying to figure out who they are and find themselves will relate more to my books as people that are trying to find themselves and figure out who they are. So I think that's more my age range. But again, it's one of those things where when I started the whole point of writing, I just wanted to tell my stories. I didn't have any concept about writing to a reader. And I know my sister was trying to teach me that at some point, and I tried to figure out what she's saying, and then at some point I just got frustrated and I gave up and I said, okay, I'm just going to write the story for me. And I did, and I wrote it. I wrote the entire thing, and I am still very proud of myself for writing that book. And I still like some of the things when I go back through and read it. I still like some of the things that I wrote in that book. Granted, I now understand why it could not be published that way and why other people going through would not enjoy reading it, because it's very confusing as to when it switches who's talking to who, which I could go back and fix, but it's from like every single character's point of view. And I know there's some old books, like my friend was telling me, like Les Miserables, that's like explains all of this stuff. Not my part friend, my book cover friend. She was telling me, like, in Les Mis, they go back through and explain the whole backstory of like the priest or something, so that when this guy comes and does the robbing or whatever, that you understand that that's part of his nature to do that. And I was like, okay, I am not writing a 1,000-page book, and I am not delving into the backstory of every single character in my book. I tried that in The Fall of Esbanglandia, and I didn't go into their whole backstories, but I created their whole perspective or point of view for each single character, and it got really confusing as to which character you're reading about or how to, and I was like, the main character was really the plot, what happens to the story, what happens to the kingdom, and these are just all the different people around what's going on in the kingdom. It wasn't the actual people. There wasn't even a main character as far as like actual characters to that book. So I still like the story idea. I still want to write the story, but it's not written to readers. It's not written something that other people would understand or read. It's kind of like that artist that I had at work yesterday that was telling me that he doesn't share his artwork because it's his and he made it special and unique to him, and he doesn't know if anyone else will understand his artwork, and he doesn't want it to be judged that way. I don't necessarily want to be judged, but I feel like I should put my books out there, and I'm very proud of the work that I'm doing and the things that I'm learning and understanding, so I'm grateful for that. But it does, like I said, it does create that kind of conundrum, like how do I convey my story and what I'm thinking and all of those, like answer everyone's questions that they have and find the details, because my friend keeps asking me more questions, which I love that she asks me questions, so it gives me something to think about. And some of them like, okay, cool, I like that, and some of them like, no, I'm just gonna leave it the way that it is, that's cool, I'm fine. So that's kind of my my process. But I'm still trying to figure out how to not be a people pleaser, still to write my book, but still to have something good enough that other people can read and actually understand the message that I'm trying to convey. But it's obviously not going to meet everyone's expectations, whatever their expectations are. And it's not going to be the same as other books. It's not going to be about some villain or some major conflict. It's just about the individual characters overcoming their trials or having to accept life the way that it is, and they don't necessarily like what it is. Like in the Fall of Espinglandia, the teachers keep trying to fight the inevitable, and they eventually have to accept this is what's going to happen, and then they find the best way to allow it to happen, but they don't like it. And that's very much me fighting against whatever the inevitable is. I know lots of people do that. They just don't want to accept what's happening in their reality. They want to live in a place of denial. So I think a lot of my characters and my stories are about that. It's just about everyday life. I just put it in a fantasy world with different powers and different things, and, you know, put it on a grand, exaggerated scale because it's more fun that way. And I get to have a little bit more control. But I don't have, like, you know, and I have characters that don't get along with each other, but I don't necessarily have bad characters, just characters that have different viewpoints that, you know, end up fighting or creating conflict or whatever. So I guess it was just kind of interesting today to see my friend's point of view, what she was looking for in a story or a book, and realizing for me, myself, that I was like, that's not what my stories are about. And then wondering, you know, that little part of me that likes to doubt myself, that negative part of me that's like, well, then is anybody going to want to read my stories? Is anybody going to want to read what I have to write? And then I'm listening to myself in my video and talking about teenagers and people trying to discover who they are and part of life. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm writing, is just someone trying to figure out who they are, discovering who they are through the different events and things that happen in their life and how they develop. And I just do it in a fun fantasy version way of it instead of a reality version way of it. But I also have my reality version of what actually happened in my life. And not that I've even lived my entire life or figured out what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I mean, you can watch these videos and I've been growing and making progress and changing my ideas and having new perspectives on things and open to understanding how other people view things and see things, and then realizing my friend's way isn't bad as far as writing books goes or having bad guys or whatever. It's just I have a different take on the story. I have a different take on life, a different direction in which I want it to go, and it doesn't require fighting bad guys. It just requires figuring out one's self, and I think I do a little better job later than I do earlier. And again, I just wrote this book to kind of explain the next book. So that was the purpose of the book, and it fulfilled its purpose as far as I was concerned. So I guess I left a lot of things open to the reader's imagination. So there are some things or questions that might still be lingering out there, and I may answer them later in later books, in later seasons, or I may just leave them open to people's imaginations. I haven't decided yet. And I think that's kind of the fun, I don't know, maniacal part of being a being a sinister part of being a writer, because I can just, you know, haha, I'm going to leave you hanging with whatever this is, and you just have to wait and see what happens next. I don't really have an evil laugh. Although I think my daughter said I did once, but I don't think anybody else believes I have an evil laugh. I'm just not an evil person, which I guess is a good thing. But it was kind of fun to learn all those different things, get different perspectives today. And it was just kind of interesting, kind of nice to be done rewriting my book and being like, okay, I'm done. Like, it just, that waiting, like, what next? Okay, now what? Kind of like when I finished my gratitude videos, and then I'm like, okay, on to my writing videos, because I'm just done. It wasn't like this big, huge, aha, whatever. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm in the middle of my story and it's done. Okay, cool. I'm done. Now what? But I had other things to do today, and I'm grateful that I've got most of the things on my to-do list done. I will be going to work a little bit later tonight. I knew I was going to go to work late tonight, so I'm not really concerned about it, but I am grateful I'm getting my video done beforehand so that I'm not so crazy and tired, and I'm grateful I got to finish my book, which was my goal. And yeah, now I have some ideas of some things I could maybe go back and add to my book, which is kind of a little frustrating because I'm like, great, I just sent it to my friend to edit it. So now I just need to be, I need to let it go, because I can go back and change it later. And maybe in 2 or 3 weeks when I go back and look at it again, hopefully my friend will finish editing it and I go back and look at her edits and suggestions and changes. It might come up as something to change, or it might not come up as something to change. And I can review it at that point and decide, okay, I'm going to add this or change this, or I'm just going to be like, you know what? It's good just the way it is. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So, and at some point I have to stop making changes to it. And I have to say, okay, this is good, because it's never going to please everybody. And as long as I'm happy with it and it's edited so it doesn't have like a whole bunch of crazy mistakes or commas in the wrong place or run-on sentences or fragmented sentences and all of that crazy stuff that, you know, grammatically correct people will go insane trying to read, then it will just be good enough to be published. And that's just how the story is going to go. And I know the first one's going to take a while for people to read. It's not going to be like big, huge, famous overnight. And same with my other book. It's not like I'm going to be rich overnight writing a book. I don't think anybody gets rich overnight writing books. And even the ones that wrote series of books or whatever, it still probably took several years before people noticed them. And of course, you know, I don't have a publisher or someone else that's doing my advertising and marketing for me. So I will be learning how to do all of that in my next 100 days of videos, which will start to make these videos, my books, more presently available. But at the same time, I will continue my writing. So hopefully, maybe by the end of my 100 days, I will actually finish The Fall of Espinglandia, and I will have that sent out to people. And then at that point, I will decide if I'm going to split it into 3 books or if I'm just going to leave it as the one and not worry about it. And I might just leave it as the one for now, and then I can go back later and decide if I want to write them. But I think I want to jump into the actual story part with the wise one and the boy from the stone. I love the boy from the stone. That one's such a fun book to write. I got through 4 chapters and it's just fun. I love that character. He's just fun. Mostly because he knows how to block his emotions. He has that power and ability to block his emotions. So he's like, he doesn't feel anything, he doesn't care about anything, and everything in life is a joke. He just, you know, everything in life, he doesn't take anything in life seriously. At some point in his life, he does have to learn that there's a balance, and he has to find that balance. And then, of course, he ends up with someone that takes everything in life way too seriously. So they kind of get to balance each other out. It'll be fun, I think. I hope. I don't know. We'll see how I end up writing it. That's the fun part for me about writing it, is that I know the basic storyline, where it's going to go. I know the stories, conversations I've had in my head with my characters, but writing it down and seeing how it actually kind of all flows together and works is just kind of, it's very interesting. It's very different to see it come to life when I write it. It's kind of fun. I like doing it. So we'll see how many books or stories get written in my 100 days. I have no idea. At this point, I really have no idea. I do know I kind of rewrote like the first 12 chapters, 10 chapters or something of The Fall of Espinglandia. So there's 24 chapters, so I'm at least halfway through that book. But I need to finish Recognizing God's Hand in My Life is my next goal. So starting tomorrow, I will be working on that one and seeing how much of that I can do before I go to work tomorrow. At least one chapter of that, I hope. And same with the rest of the weekend. And we'll see how much of that I can get finished in the next week. And then, of course, after that, I will just be in limbo waiting for other people to review my books. So it's kind of that where I have to let it go. I have to wait and see what happens, the editing process, all of those things. And then once it's done, I can be like, okay, this is where it needs to go. This is what's happening. And we're good. And then I just have to wait for some feedback from people. And then once I get my feedback, then I can be like, okay, book written, feedback, and then just go from there. And while I'm waiting, I am grateful that I have other books that I can be working on, like The Fall of Espinglandia, The Wise One, Boy from the Stone. So I have lots of things to write about and lots of things to do. And just because my books aren't the traditional type of fantasy books and there's not traditional bad guys in my stories doesn't mean that I don't have good stories to tell or stories to write. And it makes me very grateful to do these videos to kind of talk out my conundrums with you on the videos. And some of you maybe agree with my ideas, and some of you may not agree with my ways of writing, and that's okay. Everybody has a different opinion and a different way to view things and how they do things. So we'll just have to see what happens. So anyway, I am grateful I'm doing my video before work, and I'm grateful I'm able to get this done. And I'm grateful for all the stuff that I got done today, and that I can still talk about my little gratitude, because I don't want to stop being grateful for things. And I'm just super excited because I actually finished revising my book again, and I did it in like a week and a half, which is amazing to me that I went through it that quickly. So I was like, yay, that's awesome. Now if I could just get through the rest of my books that quickly, that would be amazing. How many books that I would have done. That's just kind of also scary, writing little thought. But it just, I guess it's just a reminder to me that I am a writer. This is something I enjoy doing and I get into doing, and it's a way for me to share my gifts and to show people that, you know, people can change, and there's a way up, there's a way out, there's hope through our Savior Jesus Christ. And I love that I get to share my testimony when I do these things, which, you know, some people may not like that so much, but my patriarchal blessing said that I would never be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's kind of run through my head a few times when I've been doing these videos. And I like that I can put that in here, especially when I was doing the gratitude videos, because I was originally thinking I wasn't going to talk about religion at all. And I'm like, no, it's just a part of who I am. It just is a part of who I am. And I can't hide that, especially when I'm sharing who I am with the world and sharing who I am through these videos and through my writing. It is a part of who I am. And I'm grateful for that part of me. And I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm not afraid to hide it. I don't need to hide it. I don't need to hide any other parts of me either. I'm still just, but I'm still just learning, and I'm learning to let all of that shine through and come out and be who I am. And it's kind of fun to discover who I am, and it's kind of fun to discover things through my writing too. So I'm grateful I have that opportunity. And I know I'm talking like really fast tonight. I don't know, just excited, I think. And I also know I have somewhere else I need to go soon, so I hope I'm not rambling too long in these videos. And I think that's all I have for today. So I hope you have a great day full of gratitude and writing.